Hmm, you know, I think this might be made in China. It will fall to bits within the first week of getting it. Don't ride it in the rain, it'll fall apart with rust. Don't ride further than 5 miles away from home because it'll break down. You won't get any garage to work on it because it's Chinese. Whoa! Hold your horses, not so fast. Okay, hello and welcome to the channel. So, you may be thinking about buying one of these beauties, the Benelli TRK 502 or the 502X. But just like I was before I bought this bike, you may be put off by all the negative comments that you see online about Chinese bikes. So let's get into it and find out what the actual truth is about this bike especially. Okay, so before I bought this bike, I had the preconception that all Chinese bikes are just rubbish and you should avoid them like the plague. The only reason I bought this, it was just a stopgap, a little run around. I was only going to keep for 12 months before going out and buying an Africa Twin. So I wasn't too concerned about it, thinking, well, it's only got to last me 12 months. I just want something cheap and cheerful. But the question I ask myself is, why do we have the preconception about these Chinese bikes? Well, let's get into it. Okay, I can only put it down to a lazy journalism, a lazy reviewers. Why do I say that? Well, I think everybody is trapped in the past. Yes, 10, 15 years ago, Chinese bikes are absolutely awful. And I don't think that anybody is really taking the time to delve into the present day bikes deep enough to find out what they are actually like. Yes, in recent times, a lot of the reviews have improved, both professional and amateur, and that is because the components that are being put on Chinese bikes now are just as good or the same as the big brand manufacturers. So it's getting harder and harder for reviewers and journalists just to totally dismiss the bike off the bat. However, there's still that niggling doubt that always creeps in, that is always unsubstantiated, very subjective. What do I mean by that? Well, you'll often see all the way through the review, they'll say things like, yeah, the components are really good quality, the build quality is really good. It's a very comfortable bike to ride. Oh, yes, it looks the bee's knees. But at the end of the day, it's a Chinese manufactured bike and you have to question reliability, over the long run. Would you go out and spend your money on a Chinese bike? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's just rewind that a little bit because it grips me. Because when was the last time you saw a review, either professional or amateur, where they do a long-term review on bikes that are sort of 5 years old? I can't find any. If you know of any, then send them to me, because I just can't find any. So when they say, oh, you've got to question the longevity, you've got to question the reliability, well, why don't you question it then? And why don't you address it? They never do. So on this channel, whenever I review something, I always do my due diligence. I will always try and back up any conclusion I come with facts that I've taken into consideration, or I'll actually show you physical proof. So that's what we're going to do today with the Benelli TRK. Okay, just moving on a little bit from that, along the same lines, we talk about components and things and whether Chinese manufacturing is able to produce quality items. Well, you may not know this, but a lot of the big brand bikes, they have their components either manufactured or assembled, sometimes a whole bike assembled in China. So it doesn't make sense that if they weren't able to manufacture quality products, these big brands would not do that, because it would destroy the business. You know, if they were having engines built in China and putting them in a KTM and they were blowing up after a year, it would absolutely destroy their business. So it just doesn't make sense. And another thing about journalism and amateur reviews is the way that they present the facts. They may not tell you a fact or an incorrect fact, but how they present it changes the whole way you view the information. Prime example, the KTM 790. When they review that bike, they will often say things like, yeah, the KTM 790 engine, it's a great engine, it gives you loads of power, it's got good torque, absolutely bulletproof, proven engine. And that's how they will present that. Now, I don't know if you know, but those 790 engines for KTM are made by CF Moto, which is a Chinese company. Okay, but normally they fail to mention that when they review an actual KTM bike. However, CF Moto have a CF Moto 800 MT touring bike that's been released recently. And it's a very, well, it looks a very good quality bike. I haven't ridden it yet, so I can't give you 100% impressions of it. But just by looking at it and looking at the spec sheet, it looks a very good bike for the price. And that has exactly the same engine in. It has the 790 KTM engine in. But when they review that bike, they will say about the engine, it has a Chinese-built KTM engine in it. So straight away, when I hear that, I start thinking, oh, Chinese-built, it's a copy engine. But it's not, it's exactly the same engine. So, you know, just bear in mind all these little things and be very careful and actually do your due diligence and don't just take things at face value. As I've said, on this channel, I will always try and back up everything I say and conclusions I come to by explaining the facts and what I've looked at, and then you too can make your own mind up, or I'll actually show you physical proof so that you can see what I'm talking about is true. Okay, so let's get on to this bike. Little bit of background about this bike. This is a 2018 plate. I bought it second hand with about 1,000 miles on the clock. I have owned it since then, and now it has just under 16,000 miles on the clock. I use this bike year round. I don't even have a car. I haven't had a car now for a good couple of years. So this is my main modes of transport. It gets used on everyday things like going to the shop, and it gets used for touring. I don't do anything special. I don't mollycoddle it. In winter, all I do is I hose it down after every ride with a cold water pipe. And then at the weekend, I'll give it spray it with foam, rub it down with a sponge, and then jet wash it off. And before the keyboard warriors go on about jet washing, I use the Muck Off jet wash specially designed for bikes. There is a review of it on the channel if you want to go on there. No, and it keeps the pressure down so it doesn't damage any of the components. But that's all I do. And then about 3 or 4 times a year, I will give it a good deep clean where I really go to work on it, and I give it a coat of ACF 50. Admittedly, the bike is kept in the garage. I don't leave it out overnight, or very rarely leave it out overnight. But apart from that, you know, I can back up what I'm saying. If you go on the channel, you will see where I've been out on tours, you know, in the winter time in absolutely horrendous weather. This bike is not a Sunday afternoon dream machine that only goes out when the sun shines. So it does get hammering. What I intend to do is address all the things that was said at the beginning of the video. So, you know, is it reliable? What are the components like? Does it rust? So on and so forth. We will actually go through it step by step. Okay, so let's talk about the first one, about reliability. I've had literally no problems with this bike. The only problems I've had, I had a front fork seal go, and I had a front caliper I had to replace. But I think, looking back on it, that the caliper may have gone because the fluid was leaking from the fork seal and actually got into the caliper. Um, Cutting a long story short, it happened when I was out on tour doing a really long leg, so it must have gone literally after I just got on the bike, and then I drove like 200 miles, never noticed it, and that's why I let the fluid get into the caliper. But anyway, those are the only two things that I have had wrong with this bike. Obviously, I've had to replace things like tyres, I've had to replace the chain and the sprocket, but everything else has been absolutely brilliant on it. It's been fantastic. Starts on the button no matter what the weather is, no matter what the time of year is. It's been an absolutely fantastic, reliable bike. Okay, so let's address the comment, oh, you'll never get a garage to work on it. There is some truth in that. Where I live in a very rural area. Within sort of a 50-mile radius, I sort of have 3 garages that work on bikes, and 2 out of the 3 will work on this bike. I've taken it to for MOTs, I took it for different things, doing tyres, and I asked them, would you work on this bike if it needs repairing? They said yes, absolutely, no problem. There was only one garage that wouldn't work on it. They'd still do MOTs and change tyres, but they said they don't do any maintenance, as in if the bike breaks down. And the reason for that is they say that it can be difficult to get parts for Chinese bikes, and they don't want it blocking their garage when they've got other bikes coming in that they could be working on and earning money on. Which is a fair point, which brings me on to parts. Now, you will be told that, oh, parts for these bikes, you just can't get them. That's not true. It's more difficult than getting the major brands, so Honda or Suzuki. You can't just walk into a dealer and get these things off the shelf. MotoGP are the importers, and they're a brilliant company. When you ring them up, they're very knowledgeable, they're very helpful. The only thing is they don't have the parts. You can look on the website and it'll say not in stock in 3 months' time. You can go back in 3 months' time and it'll say exactly the same thing. It is a nightmare trying to get parts in that fashion. However, if you're prepared to go on the internet and you're prepared to bring parts in from Europe, you'll have absolutely no problem. You can get anything you want. There are Facebook pages. There is the Benelli UK owners page. I'll put a link up now. I always get the name wrong. If you're thinking about getting one of these bikes, have a look on there. It's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best pages I've ever been on. So big thumbs up to the admins of that page. And there are guys on there who have started importing the parts and setting their own business up, and you can actually get parts through them, or they'll get the parts for you if you're not very au fait with the internet and doing that kind of thing. One of the things that they often don't tell you about this bike, if you look at the figures for Italy, I think for the last 3 years, this has been the best-selling adventure bike. It's outsold the BMW GS, it's outsold the KTMs, the Honda Africa Twins. For 3 years running, this is the #1 selling adventure bike over in Italy. So, you know, the parts are available. They would have to be, otherwise people wouldn't buy them over there. So don't worry about the parts. Yes, you may have to wait around about a week to get the parts, and you may have to pay a little bit more on delivery. However, you can get the parts, and it is improving, you know, year in, year out. They are becoming more readily available. Okay, so now let's address the rust issue. When you go on the forums and when you see reviews on the internet, you will often hear people saying that the discs, the brake discs on these bikes rust really badly. That's not true, okay? With the discs, it's the brake pads. If you use a standard brake pad with sort of a ferrous lining, what happens is, and it's a quirk of this bike, I've never seen this happen on another bike that I've owned. What happens is the dust builds up onto the disc itself, and then it's the dust that rusts and makes it look like the disc is rusting. I've had this happen on this bike. However, if you buy organic brake pads, I use EBC, other brands are available, it stops that. There is no rust on my brake discs at all, and we will go and have a good close look underneath the bike. We'll look at all the fasteners, whether there's any paint flaking off the engine casings. We'll look at all the components in a minute. I'll give you good close-up shots. And remember, when you're looking at this bike is a 2018 plate with nearly 16,000 miles on the clock, and it is used all year round. So remember that when you're looking at the bike, because you will also see posts on various pages on the interweb where people say, I've owned this bike for 12 months and it's rusting, it's falling bits, and they actually put photographs on, and I've seen them. And I'm saying to you that that is poor maintenance by the owners. They're not cleaning them, they're not looking after them. You know, my wife's got a Honda NC750X, and it's just as good condition as this. There's no difference in condition between the two. Both bikes are used year round. However, if I took this bike out, or if I took the Honda out in the middle of winter on a rainy day after the road's been salted, and I brought the bike back and I didn't hose it down with cold water, and then I left it for 2 weeks, this bike would be covered in rust. But guess what? The Honda would as well. Any bike would. If you go out on salty roads and you don't clean your bike after and then leave it for weeks, it'll rust. And I don't care who you are or what bike you've got, you know, whether you ride a Ducati, a BMW, a Harley Davidson, I don't care what you say. If you go out if you don't wash your bike for 2 weeks after being on a salted road in the wet, you will get surface rust on your bike. So just bear in that mind, and you know, hopefully when you see this bike in a moment, I'm going to prove that. I'm going to prove to you that what I'm saying is true. Okay, so let's take a close look at the bike. Let's start with the mileage. I hope you can see that. So 15,562 miles. Okay, so let's look at the plastics, the bodywork, how the panels fit, the paintwork, and as you can see, the paintwork is still pristine all over the bike. There's some scratches here where I've cut my boots on it, where I've fell off the bike. But all on the frame, the paintwork is absolutely great. Swing arm, great. Wheels, absolutely great. Front wheel, paint, rims. I won't go over detail the other side of the bike because it's exactly the same. You know, I'm not pulling any wool. You know, you look at the paint on the engine, there's nothing flaking off, nothing flaking off the swing arm that side. Okay, let's check for rust. So I mentioned the rust on the discs, and as you can see, there is no rust on the discs, no rust or anything flaking off the calipers, front forks, exhaust, all very, very good. These bars are aftermarket bars from AliExpress that have held up really well, and believe me, I've dropped this bike a couple of times and I've actually fallen off the bike, as you can see here, 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 here. And the last time I dropped this was on a very steep camber exiting a car park when I was on one of my Scottish tours, and I was fully loaded up with the panniers on the back, carrying a lot of weight, and there was absolutely no damage to the bike. Those crash bars did an absolutely fantastic job of protecting the bike. Okay, let's get a close up looking inside the rear shock. Rear hugger. Rear caliper has a little bit of flaking paint there, but again the rear disc is really good. As I said, the rims really good. Let's look underneath the bike. Sorry, it's a bit dirty, but some paint flaking off here, off the stand, but to be honest, that's my fault. That's poor maintenance, because I hate cleaning the stand. I don't know why. Don't mind cleaning the rest of the bike, but so overall, the general condition of the bike, I think it's on par with any of the Hondas. I mean, I'm a big Honda man. I've always had Hondas, and this has been on par with any of the Hondas I've owned for quality of the components. You know, the exhaust again, absolutely a zero rust on the exhaust. Looking this side, again, the swing arm, no rust whatsoever. Like I say, rust on the stand, I admit, but again, it's only surface rust. You know, a little bit of wire wall and that come off, and that is down to my poor maintenance. Frame wise, as you can see, everything is absolutely spot on. The hoses are fine, haven't perished. I've had no oil leaks other than the fork seal. This side, fork's great. Caliper, great, no flaking there. Spokes, absolutely no rust whatsoever on the spokes front or back. Look underneath here. So guys, I hope you can see that I'm being as truthful as I possibly can. I'm not trying to hide anything from you. I'm not trying to pass a new bike off as an old bike. This is a 100% 2018 plate with nearly 16,000 miles on the clock that has been used year round as a main mode of transport. Okay. So we've had a look at the bike, we've discussed everything. You know, you can say that I am biased because I own the bike, but to be honest, as I said, I bought this bike with the preconception that most of us have, was that this bike was going to be rubbish, it was going to be uncomfortable, it was going to be unreliable, it was going to fall bits. And you say, why did you buy it then? It was because I was waiting to get a Honda Africa Twin 1100. I can't remember what the delay was. I don't know whether I was waiting for it to be released, whether it hadn't been released yet, or it was something to do with the time of year. Back then I was working away from home and it was winter time. But anyway, I'd got some reason why I wanted to wait 12 months, but I still needed a bike in between, a little run around. So that's why I bought it. And after owning it, I mean, I think I paid about £3,500 for this bike, and the Honda Africa Twin was coming out around, at the time, around about 17,500 for the version I wanted. And after I bought this and had it for 12 months, I was thinking to myself, can I justify going out and spending all that money? Will I get that much money? I mean, what's the difference? I'm rubbish at maths, about 13 grand, something like that. So, you know, can I justify going out and spending £13,000 on a bike? Is it going to give me £13,000 more enjoyment? Is it going to be £13,000 more reliable? I don't think so. I love the bones of this bike. I mean, you get some bikes that you don't really connect with, even though they're brilliant bikes. My wife's Honda NC750X. It's a fantastic bike in every way. But when I park that up and I walk away from it, I don't turn around and just have a quick look and think, yeah, it's a good looking bike. Whereas with this one, when I walk away, I look around and I look at it and I go, yeah, like that. You know, and if I need to ride the bike and I've got the choice of the two, I'll always pick this one because I just love it so much. But this isn't a road review of the bike. There is already a road review and an impressions of the bike on the channel. So if you're after that sort of review, take a look. But now, honestly, you know, don't be put off by all the negative history of Chinese bikes. The modern day bikes are really, really good, and they are amazing value for money. Go out, have a good look at them, you know, get up close, get hands on, take them out for a test ride, and I think you will be pleasantly surprised. So my end conclusion is, you know, should you consider buying a Benelli TRK if you've been looking at them? Absolutely 100%. I would absolutely 100% recommend these bikes. So guys, I really hope that this review has come over as unbiased and objective, and I really hope that it's answered some of your questions regarding the Benelli TRK 502. This is the X version, by the way, slightly higher, different exhaust. As I said, if you want a on-the-road review of how the bike handles and what it's like to ride, check out the channel. There are lots of other motorcycle orientated stuff on the channel. So if you're new, please remember like and subscribe, show the love. It really does help the channel, especially if you want me to keep continuing making more videos for your leisure. So I suppose all that's left to say is thank you very much for checking out the channel. Thank you for all the regulars who keep returning. It is very, very much appreciated. And all that's left to say is everybody ride safe out there. Bike Rider Reviews out.